Action.
Hi, I'm John Pell.
And I'm Mason Brown, and we're Research and Instruction Librarians here at Hunter College.
So thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of John and Mason Talk About Library Research. Our topic for this video is describing your search strategy. Now, our library research assignment asks students to describe their search strategy. And since we've seen a lot of variety in how students have interpreted this particular question on the assignment, we thought we should take some time to try to impart some specific ideas about exactly what Mason and I think a search strategy is, why we think it's important, and what we're looking for when we are evaluating your description of your research strategy. So Mason, why are we asking our students to describe their search strategies?
Right, so search strategies make up an important part of the research methodology of literature-based forms of research, such as literature reviews, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis. Clear, methodical descriptions of a search strategy provide an important way for you to document the thoroughness of your review. A well-described search strategy can also serve to guide other researchers who may be interested in conducting further literature-based research that builds on the results of your review. So, John, what makes for a good description of a search strategy for the purposes of our research assignment?
I think that a good description of a search strategy is going to clearly describe an example of, well, not just one example, several examples of what ideal publications for answering the research question would be. And it's going to provide details about how these publications are going to be located. So the description of the ideal publications is going to include details about the research design included in the publications and the theoretical basis for the research that's informing the publication. The explanation for how those are going to be located is going to include descriptions of the databases where the publications might be stored and the exact terms that are going to be used to retrieve the documents from the database.
And a good description of a search strategy will also demonstrate an ability to think creatively and synthesize available information in order to address the research question. For example, suppose a student wants to know about the direct connection between A and B, yet no published research makes that connection. The student should now research A and B separately and make the connections between those points on their own.
So with that in mind, let's talk about some examples of what Mason and I think are weak descriptions of a search strategy.
Now, this would be a search strategy that simply states the researcher will look for the words that are already in the initial research question.
An example of this might be a description that states, I will search for the terms AIDS, Hispanic, women, and New York City.
So what's missing from that? There's no description of what could be used to answer the question. There's no backup plan for putting things together that don't exactly answer the question, but that can be synthesized in order to improve understanding of the question. And finally, there's no analysis of and no effort to identify alternative means of describing the ideas behind the research question.
So it should come as no surprise that that short little description leaves a lot of important information out. It's a common effort to improve this sort of description might be including additional terms that are related to terms in the research question.
So an example of that would be, in addition to the terms AIDS, Hispanic, women, and New York City, I will also be searching for the terms acquired immune deficiency syndrome, Latina, and female.
This is a bit of an improvement. It shows some effort to identify synonyms that are related to the terms in the research question, but it's still not a strong description of a research strategy. It's still just a list of words. Let's go over again some of the important information that's left out of a description of a strategy like this. There's no concept of what would answer the research question, and there's no backup plan for synthesizing available information to address the question.
And as just mentioned, you need a plan for synthesizing less than ideal search results into a useful product. Now, for example of this, we mean that at times you won't be able to find one perfect study talking about the rates of AIDS in Hispanic women in New York City. Instead, you might find one paper describing the rates of AIDS in Hispanic nationwide, and another article discussing the rates of AIDS in all women in New York City. Now, you could synthesize that information on your own, combined with up-to-date current census data, to come up with some very informed ideas about the rates of AIDS in Hispanic women in New York City. So, John, what does this contribute to someone's ability as a researcher, and where should they go from here?
I think it's contributing several things to this search process. It's providing a clear concept of what an ideal search result is going to look like so that the researcher can quickly judge the success of their search attempts.
Yeah, that's important. And it provides a range of possible alternatives for retrieving that ideal search result so that researchers don't have to give up after a couple of unsuccessful attempts.
And it's also providing a plan for synthesizing available information, so that way the researchers don't feel stuck when they encounter the all-too-common situation in which the ideal search results aren't anywhere to be located.
And finally, by describing all of these things, the search strategy provides a clear record of what the researcher has and has not tried in order to retrieve related information.
So that's it for today's topic.
So thank you for tuning in, and check out our next video coming soon on search queries.